if people are going to be entrepreneurs, just know it's going to be hard. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of your time. And just don't spend the money that you make on yourself or stuff that can't make you money. Because man, it's easy to spend money that makes you money. You know what I mean? Because that's what helps you grow. But if you're spending money on stuff that ain't going to make you money in the first couple of years, you might as well just expect it to be either that hard for that much longer or a real struggle.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Real Pasadena Podcast. This show is dedicated to sharing the experiences of local business owners and inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs here in Pasadena, Maryland, and beyond. My guests on this episode are Stephanie and Kelsey Gary, co-owners of KG Truck and Auto. Kelsey, a graduate of Chesapeake High School in Pasadena, together with his wife Stephanie, have built their family-owned automotive repair and maintenance business from the ground up. In our interview, Stephanie and Kelsey share their journey of how they started over a decade ago, navigating the challenges and building a successful enterprise. We also discuss their dedication to customer satisfaction and community engagement, making KG Truck and Auto an integral part of the Anne Arundel County business community. This episode is sponsored by Buxton Media Productions, your one-stop shop for video production, podcasting, and editing services. Whether you're looking to produce a promotional video for your business, create more consistency with your social media content, or even start your own podcast, Buxton Media Productions has everything you need to get started. They even have a local studio right here in Pasadena where we're recording this podcast. To learn more, visit them online at buxtonmediaproductions.com. Kelsey and Stephanie, thank you for being here on the podcast today. I'm going to start addressing you, Kelsey, because I want to hear the unique perspective. First person on the podcast I've had who actually graduated high school with. So we share something in common there, which I talk about as kind of a motivational factor of more of a point of contention of not being shown this path of being a business owner and an entrepreneurship at an earlier time in my life, that I had to kind of figure that out through self-discovery. So I'm really curious to hear what your experience was, if it was similar, but ultimately what led you to ultimately decide to start up your business and choose this path of entrepreneurship.
Well, first, it's awesome to see that how we were together younger and then grew apart and been distanced, and now we're coming back, right back to it. So it's pretty cool to see grassroots where we come from, you know?
Absolutely.
So when I was 16, just looking for a job with a friend of mine, and his mom was looking at a penny saver, and it was changing oil at the dealership at Bob L. Ford. So we're like, hey, let's do it. So we both got a job there at the same time. And we would have fun, competitive, like how fast can we change oil and do our job effective and efficient, and got really good at doing it. And then I had a friend of mine, his dad would come and ask me to help him all the time when he needed help. So it was Dave Placek was the lead diesel tech at Bob L. Ford. And I would go help him all the time, and he liked my attentiveness, and we worked good together. So then I became his helper.
Okay.
So I did that for a couple of years with him. He was a good mentor and like a second father because we were younger. So he would keep me straight and keep me focused. And I went on my own, and then he was able. I worked right next to him, so he guided me as I struggled in the learning process. So I kind of became a really good mechanic at the dealership and had a lot of resources. And I never really did good with like education at school, being in that setting. So Ford provided me with mechanic tests and classing and certifications. So I had that strive because I was always asking him for help. Mm-hmm. So I like to be independent. So I got a little more independent, was learning and self-teaching and going through the school system through Ford, and got a lot of certifications through there. So it wasn't a college or a trade school, but it was the Ford Motor Company schooling that I got.
Was that all done on site at the dealership?
Actually, no. It was some of it was online there, but you would do all the online classes first, and then they would send you out to different locations that Ford Motor Company would have. I did surrounding states mostly, Chantilly and Jersey and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was a commute.
Yeah.
That was a commitment and a commute.
But Ford invested in their employees, and I got paid to go there and do it too. So that was also, I didn't have to pay for it. So it was also an easy motivation for me, and I got raises and experience off of the classing too. So it was a cool program that they had provided for the employees.
Yeah. Was there anything in particular that you liked about that industry that really kept you motivated?
I kind of fell into it. I wasn't like a gearhead. I wasn't like one of those guys talking about racing the cars and going home and working on them.
You're still not.
Yeah. I fell into it and found out once I became a mechanic, after a couple of years of doing that, I could make really good money if I worked hard and focused on it. And I was very good at navigating through things and self-teaching, and also doing something once or twice and learning it. And you might hear this down the road again. I learned a lot the hard way of what not to do by doing it. And it's one of those sayings where to succeed, you must fail. So there's a lot of that going through that growth period. A lot of that going on. So if you learn the hard way once, you really don't want to learn the second time, and then you really get upset with yourself. So
yeah,
a lot of that happened, and Ford was able to support me through that.
At what point did it change from a job to I'm going to start my own business?
That's a good one. I didn't get challenged. I started feeling like I was only working on the diesel truck, so I kind of mastered the Ford diesel trucks area. And it got to the point where I was doing the same things day in and day out, and it was a lot of hard work, and then it became like an expectation, and it wasn't fun or challenging. Mm. And I kind of found my way into a dead end, so I wasn't being challenged enough. So I ended up going to independent shops. There was a shop that we would they had 40 vehicles that we would maintain, a fleet, and we would actually build the trucks. This is more the heavy duty side, tractors and trailers and stuff. And we would buy used trucks and outfit them, cut frames, add frames, do all the wiring on them, just what you would assume at an assembly line down at like a manufacturer. But it wasn't an assembly line. We would just buy a truck and do it. But that was really a lot of fabrication, heavy duty experience. So I got really challenged there because it was something I'd never done before. I'm cutting frames, I'm welding, I'm getting in the engineering side. So that was very interesting.
Stuff you had done before, or you're learning it all as you go on site? Were there people helping you?
I was able to take the stuff that I did know from Ford, but the guys that worked there always fell into like little mentors, where they would guide me. Like if I didn't have experience cutting up a frame or welding and stuff, they would teach me, and then it probably wasn't the prettiest in the beginning, so they would make me do it again and stuff like that. And just learning to master it and caring about what you do by putting your name on it. You know, you get in a shop talk, you don't want somebody to have to make fun of you for something that you've done bad or something like that. So there's a level of respect and stuff that you try to earn in that realm as well.
Okay. So you found something to challenge you, and then what happened next?
So that specific place was such a drive. It was like a 3-hour drive to get there and back. So yeah. So it didn't make, I lasted about 1.5 years there, and then I ventured to another independent shop, and I fell right back into it, wasn't meeting my needs, and I found myself working on a lot of friends and family and people that heard of me at home, and I was getting off of work to work on, you would call them side jobs at the time, you know? So I was working a lot doing that and working my butt off, killing myself. So I'm like, why am I working for somebody and it feels like it's never good enough? And then I'm going home and working on everything. And then it started to become like, it started running me. It became a demand. Like people were coming at me. They're wanting more stuff done where I couldn't really get a schedule. It's just always banging at it and going at it. So decided to have my first kid. So that was my motivation. I said, well, never is it going to be a good time. If I'm going to do it, let's do it now. And didn't have nothing saved. You know, I had all the tools in my toolbox, and I decided to rent a shop, a single bay shop, and all my side work became work. So I kind of just I didn't really have any mentors, business mentors at the time. I kind of just jumped into it and treated my side jobs how I would treat them, communicate, diagnose it, and find the parts on myself. And fell into just a system like that for like a year.
Now, did you quit the day job?
I did.
Okay.
So I try to do the right thing as best I can. So I communicated and said, "Hey, I'm going to start my own shop. I'll give you my 2 weeks. Do you need me?" And they're like, "Yeah, absolutely. We do need you," because I was pretty valuable there.
Yeah.
So I was able to work 2 weeks and then help set up the shop for 2 weeks because I didn't have anything saved. So
yeah,
it was good that I was able to do that too as well. So once I started on my own, it was definitely a new feeling like, oh, I don't have to clock in or have no, it was a lot less structure because I'm just coming in and winging it in the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
It was all side work became work, and I tried to keep communication and just do what I knew by that. And that was the start of how it grew. You know, that was the very beginning of, oh, this is working. You know, I should probably take this more serious.
It's always good when the business is coming. You know, it makes it a lot easier to start off and to get going. So Stephanie, I want to bring you into the conversation. At what point did you meet this guy, and he sucked you into this venture?
Mm-hmm.
He actually didn't. I think that's a misconception a lot of people have is that, and I know it's even more rare to see women in this industry, but even that much more rare to see women who choose this industry on purpose. And I actually chose this on purpose. I was already in government enterprise sales and industry parallel to it in helping optimize organizations to go paperless and offering other solutions that were in the transportation industry. So we were attacking the same industry, just different sides of it. And so because at the time I was going through a separation also, I had been in the workforce after being a stay-at-home mom for about 9 years and homeschooling and helping with the DoD contracting business. I learned a lot of skills through that. But when I got back into the workforce with four little ones, I went right into working into various positions with different organizations and kind of just slowly climbed the ladder that way, or I would say rather quickly. But all of that, I made really great money. What I couldn't make or duplicate was time. And so I found myself at 30 years old, and I'm going to be, 38 tomorrow? I always get confused. It's a running joke between us. I'm like, am I 38 or 39? I think I'm turning 38 next week. But so I found myself at 30 years old kind of saying, are my kids really going to care what I have in the bank account, or are they going to remember that I'm not here for a lot of things? And at that time, it was make it or break it, sole provider. So there was a lot, right? And like I didn't have an option to fail. So I was very career driven and career focused, which got me very quickly to a lot of places I never thought I would have gone, not having a college education as well, or you could say more informal, right? So when we started working together, we were working for a year. I wasn't physically at the company, but we were working on a lot of accounts. So at that time, I had moved to Damascus, but was working primarily. A lot of my clients were in Glen Burnie and Pasadena, and I'm not from this area, and he was or is, and so he was one of the clients that I met along the way. And as we started talking, I realized that he was also new on his journey and figuring out and understanding a little bit about the industry. And I was like, well, this is what I'm doing. I can help teach you run meetings, how to bring business in, how to organize questions for a meeting, how to follow up, all the things, right? The formulas to make it successful and close the deal, which were all new concepts for him. And it for me, the benefit was him introducing me to the same people I also wanted to do business with. So I was able to equally close business for the entity I was working for previously and also help him grow while he also kind of gave me names. And we informally built the business and the clientele that way. It finally got to the point for over a year where he needed help with managing the businesses coming in. And I just genuinely wanted a better work-life balance in terms of scheduling. I was never not working. I mean, it was 3 a.m. and I was on customer care calls trying to facilitate a good experience for clients. So while it paid handsomely, the price of time was just, it was too high. It was too high. And I'm glad that that's something that I realized very early on, because that wasn't something that anyone's ever talked to me about. Time is something you don't get back, especially when you have kids. And so it was a real decision. And I took a really big paycheck cut to come on board. And I did have other offers on the table. And the reason I chose to accept his offer specifically is because I saw very earlier on, even though neither one of us had a real understanding of like leadership, the way that he spoke to his team and led in times where he didn't even know I was there. And I just was like waiting because we had a meeting or we were attending a meeting, but he didn't know I had showed up yet. And I just observed his influence and the way that he would speak to people in the room, and especially his team members. That was something that, even though I had offers on the table that offered me way more than what I was asking for or met what I was asking for, I never saw that leadership. And even though I didn't understand totally what I was saying yes to, because I had zero experience in the industry, it is something I chose on purpose, but I chose to go 2 feet in and learn it completely from scratch. A lot of times on my own, trial by error, staying in the shop, holding up a flashlight, going on site, asking the technicians, just watching how repairs were being done and asking questions. It was a lot of learning and self-teaching and leaning into our vendors, our partnerships that we had with people, and just asking, like, do you have a class? Do you have a class for this? I'll sign up. I'll go wherever. I'll drive wherever. I was doing a lot of classes after work in the evening times till about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, just educating myself on everything that I possibly could, because that structure really didn't exist when I came on board. So there was a lot of learning in the first 5 years for sure.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, we mentioned before we started recording, it's one of the common themes I'm hearing, and it's to constantly be learning and growing and have that that mindset of a growth mindset. And I think it's so critical and important. One thing I want to mention, or I guess talk about a little bit, just because I have the opportunity. You're both here. You're married. You're running a business together. That's a dichotomy that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work.
It's a make it or break it.
How did you work that out? It sounded like you were able to work kind of in parallel for a little bit before a relationship began, but then once you're in this relationship, you're seeing each other all the time. How do you separate the two? How do you define roles and responsibilities? What did that look like? Because if there's anyone...
Do you want to answer the first half?
Yeah, I'll give you my version. So first, it's never just worked out. It's just like a marriage outside of working together. It's something that continues to have to work on. And then when you have growth in business, it's like who's doing what. You know what I mean? You kind of just... It's all evolves around communication. Sometimes you lose track of that and you just start picking up something, and then you overstep, and you got mommy telling somebody something and daddy telling somebody something. You know what I mean? So it does evolve around communication. And when I say it's like a marriage, because there is ups and downs, and it can get difficult, but then it does high five. Like when we go to a meeting and get a new client that reached out to us and different things like that. So it's a lot of good, and there always will be difficult and always will be good, so it's learning how to communicate and work together in those ways. And for me, it's shutting it off when you go home and when it's work, but sometimes it's difficult because there's some days where I don't see her at work. You know what I mean? I'm in the shop, and then we'll try to recap at the end of the day and get sucked into a work conversation where I'm like, all right, let's step back here. I need to shut back down here. So it's it's very cool to see how you can build something with your partner like that, because a lot of people are like, oh, how do you work with your wife? We've done it from day one. So I tell her I wouldn't want to do it without you now. We've built something here. It's going to be not the same without you. You know, that's my version.
I'm like tearing up.
Yeah.
It's emotional, man, in the best way. It really is. We get asked that quite a bit. I definitely do not recommend it and know that dichotomy is not for everyone. It's just what we know. It's how it's been from the beginning. I think we were both at a place in our lives where there was a sense of urgency, where there just wasn't an option to fail. And I think out of that was born an understanding from the very beginning and a commitment and like an unspoken promise that whatever it is to come our way, we're going to figure it out both personally and professionally. The one thing now, having 8.5 years under our belt, that if I had to get advice or something that I wish someone else that had our same dichotomy could have given to us, that if you are considering working together and you are, married or together in some form or fashion, like he said, it does revolve around communication. And when we started, we were babies ourselves. And I say babies in the aspect of education, intellect, just understanding what it takes to run a business, what it takes to have healthy, effective teams, organizational competency. Like, there's so many moving parts, and you are somehow supposed to just wake up and know who you are as a leader, what's your communication style, how do you hold accountability. Those are things that you honestly learn by trial and error. And I think that if I had to give any advice, that I would say by year 5, we definitely learned how to fine tune, because it was a road to get there, but it was a road that we equally understood there was a promise to get through whatever was going to come our way. And that was just an unspoken promise that we had since day one. And that got us through the very tough moments. But 5 years in, I think we both learned who we were as leaders. So who we are as leaders is the same, but also very different who we are as people, right? And I say that because even our management styles are completely different. We are completely different in every way when it comes to our management styles, but then also a lot where it makes sense, very similar. So we had to learn very early on, and this is the part that I wish somebody would have told us, take the time to understand before you start running the organization, take the time to understand who you are yourself in the sense of a leader, your communication style, accountability, structure for accountability, what is your idea of being on the same page in front of the team? Those are things that we've learned by trial and error. And at year 5, we really got to define, especially through COVID, rolling out those skill sets. And I also learned that through the process, I'm an integrator and he's a visionary. And understanding what those qualities are and what they bring to the table into an organization, you learn how to effectively work together once you understand and you clearly understand your roles and what you're able to give and offer to the company and where your deficits are as well and where you complement each other. So that was something that was vital to learn that continues to make us effective now better than we were years ago.
Awesome. Great insight. Kelsey, I'm going to jump over to you here. I want to talk about what Stephanie was saying about, learning and becoming a leader. At what point did you start to bring on employees and grow to where you move from, the technician, the sole operator, to now you're the leader and you need to bring on employees and then they need systems and processes? What was that experience like?
Yeah, a lot of that was what Stephanie was bringing up that we'll always dive into. So my first shop, let me back up. So when I was a technician at dealerships, I would have helpers to be able to produce more work than I physically could. You're only one person. So I'd be diagnosing and telling a helper and teaching a helper, because that's what was done with me. So I had similar styles that my mentor Dave gave me. So when I started hiring employees, it was first it was techs, and I just treated them like helpers. Whether they didn't really need the help of like an apprentice, but they would be an experience. But I would diagnose and estimate and set the expectation with my client, and then I would just, depending on the individual, I'd let them know what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and then I have like a biological clock, like, because I've lived it, and I'm doing it. So I would check in on them to make sure they're not struggling, and see if it's like if they're taking more time than I would anticipate, you know what I mean, and then try to help push them along. So it kind of was like leadership. My easiest way of not even knowing I was doing it was leading from the front. Being in there with them and doing it with them and showing them and failing together and winning together, So I didn't really think about leadership and all that back then. I'm just doing what I've learned at the dealerships and have helpers. And then the more it got more busy and growing, I can only do so much. So I would try to hire certain people to take little duties and have enough for them to have a full-time job. So really, I'm doing the work of 2 or 3 people, and when you're starting off like that, they're part of having a marriage together is supporting each other. So we're taking turns on who's staying late. I'm there till 4 a.m, and I'm coming home, and there's food coming out of that oven. It ain't getting microwaved or sitting out cold. So it was a big support system, and then managing the kids together. Like if she had to stay late or ran a meeting late, then I would go pick up the kids. So it's a big support system. But going back to the leadership is, I guess like she was saying, I was doing it for a while with not even realizing it. I was just focused on getting stuff in and out and doing what I thought was right. So once you start getting where you can visualize like, or struggling with certain people, that's when I start asking these questions. Well, why am I struggling? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing? Because you say something that you think that is so clear and like simple to you, but it might not be like that on the other side. So instead of getting frustrated with somebody, you always ask yourself the questions first. What am I doing wrong? What can I be doing differently? Why is this so difficult? And then you start asking those questions with different people around you, or just having conversations, and you start learning different things and trying different things that might work for you individually. So there's some things that might work for me that might not work for you, So you find out what works for you, and that's kind of how the self-taught system worked for me, and just getting really frustrated and venting to each other about different things, how bad of a day or stuff we're struggling with, and working together on solving problems. And that'll never end,
That's a very powerful way to look at it. The mindset is that you're taking ownership of it. You're not putting it on somebody else and saying, well, I have no control over this, right?
A good example is KG's on the building. So no matter who's behind me doing the work, it represents you. So it also lets your team know that you're there for them. It's a result of your leadership. So no matter who does what, it doesn't matter. It's a team and a company that you gotta. I think there's different sayings where a leadership saying, I wish I knew these better to tell them. No matter where you are in leadership, is you. I think you'll remember this when I start talking about it. Is when somebody fails, you're the one that, even though somebody else did it, you admit it like it's your fault. But when you succeed, you throw it on somebody else's lap. I think there's a lot more to that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and leading from the front is the easiest thing when you're in your business and blue collar like that. It's the easiest start for me.
What's up, Pasadena? I'm James Bowerman, your Pasadena Realtor and host of the Real Pasadena Podcast. As a lifelong resident, I've experienced firsthand what makes our town such an amazing place to live, work, and play. As a local real estate agent, having the opportunity to serve so many wonderful people in our community is truly a great honor. If you're thinking about making a move, let me show you how my knowledge and experience can help you achieve your real estate goals. To To learn more or to schedule a private consultation, please visit realcreativegroup.com.
So as you started to scale and grow, when did you move into the shop you're in now?
5 years ago now, almost 5 years ago.
March will be the 5th year.
Yeah. And that's when the team started assembling. To answer your question, like how did the team grow in process and procedure? We went from a total of 6 or 7 all in one weekend. We never shut down for business. There was no business interruption. And then we went from 6 to 7, and in 30 days we had 20 people with having to build process and procedure and departments. There was never any departments. We were all the departments.
We're all the hats,
We were all the departments. So that was a change. And then the following year we got hit with COVID.
Yeah.
So that was scary, but a good time.
I've always been too busy.
The worst good
stressed me
time.
out being too busy.
Yeah.
But there's 2 weeks of COVID where I had the stress of what is going on here. I've never had no work and you work hard to find the right people and build a team together, and you got to provide at that point.
Was that the scariest time in your?
That was probably the most stressful. Yeah, was and scary because
It was a tall order.
nobody knew what was going on in the world at that point.
Providing a sense of security from an organizational standpoint, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, both employers and employees, having and providing a sense of security for your team during the most uncertain time when you didn't have the answers to answer everyone and know what to expect, but plan for the worst. That, I would say, was probably our biggest accomplishment. We accomplished a lot, and we broke a lot of barriers and kicked down a lot of doors that would have never been open for us. And we turned that situation definitely into an opportunity, not just growth professionally, personally, but services were added. We discovered so many things about our team, and were able to really become, I would say, a real company through our process and procedure at that point, being able to analyze it. But the biggest win that we had was providing that sense of security for a team in the most uncertain time. Hands down, that was the win during COVID. And that was a challenge because we didn't know, and it was a lot of meetings, we slept there many of nights just to try to plan and figure it out and
finding
brainstorm.
out what doesn't work. A lot of that.
Yeah. But that was definitely the win for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Stephanie, I want to talk about your contributions, which are a little, when I think of the traditional like mechanic shop, right? I don't think of the approach that you've taken, where you're taking your kind of your corporate experience, but you're building relationships. You're getting involved in the community. You were recently added to the Anne Arundel County Economic Development
Perfect
Board.
Took me a while too.
Yeah. It's a mouthful. So tell me a little bit about your journey through those pathways and building those relationships and how being involved in the community has impacted the business.
I never saw it coming. That's the best way I can explain it. I never saw it coming. And it's such a profound and emotional thing for me, just on a lot of what this business has given us a platform to do, because it isn't just me. It's a team. It's him and I. I couldn't do what I do in the business without him as well, and vice versa. So everything that we are passionate about and involved in, whether it's myself or him being the face of it, is born out of true experience. And so being a daughter of 2 Christian pastors, but also immigrant parents, where college was not a conversation, was not something ever positioned. I got married young and had kids young. I went through a journey of learning for sure, and an even greater learning journey at 28 and 29 when I was facing a separation, and going through the motions of that. And so with 4 little ones, I mean, there was so much that I learned, and so much through the process of learning and going through corporate and going through climbing the ladder and celebrating and having mentors and all the things along the way, because it's definitely, success is based on accountability, but also building a village to get there. You don't do it by yourself. No matter how much grit you have, there's no accomplishing it on your own. And so the more that I've been involved on the recruitment side, not just for the company, but part of many important workforce discussion as a panelist in those discussions, and on the AAEDC side, and CAT North, and a lot of trade schools, and speaking to high schools, young women, young men. I see so much of what I went through in those experiences, and where the deficits were, not just being from two immigrant parents, but also skills that I just didn't have, that I had to learn, a level of professionalism, how to carry meetings, understanding how to advocate for myself, ask for a raise at a job. Well, what does that mean? How do you do that? What's the expectation? What do they expect from you? What is it okay for you to ask for in return? I mean, there was so much of a learning curve that when I see that now, and how involved I've been in the business, and that's one of the hats, there's so much that I see that we could be doing better, not just ourselves as an organization, but so much experience that I can leverage to communicate to the right parties and the right entities in this county for real change. And so that part happened by accident, but the passion has definitely been born out of real experience that I encountered going through the same process as these kids, and not having parents who could give me advice in that realm because they didn't know about it themselves or how to educate me in this way. And I went through a lot of embarrassing interviews because I just didn't know. And so when I see that, I'm like, oh, I know that we can help here. We have the knowledge. I understand where this is coming from. I think that we could bridge the gap. We could be doing better. I know that we could transition kids out of high school a lot easier into the real world. Here's where the disconnect is. This is why kids are leaving the industries, including instructors and kids who enter the trades within 1 or 2 years. There's so many gaps in the workforce in the transition of preparing kids out of high school, whether they go to college or not, or into the trades, into the real life. And so I think that for us, a lot of what has been born has truly come from just the experiences we had ourselves, but knowing that we can and we're willing to do better to bridge that gap in the workforce and have an impact. This county has given us so much. And I never would have imagined that either one of us would have been in a position to provide and give opportunity to people around us of all ages. And if we're in this platform, I believe that is God-given, and I want to make sure that regardless if I'm in this industry or whatever industry God has me in, that it is God-driven and it's God-purpose, and that I'm doing something meaningful with my time, not for myself, but to be able to give it to other people. And that is what has led and guided to this point. Every interaction or the involvement that you see that I have in the community has really been a source of that. So it's something I'm very, very passionate about.
I can tell. I love that. Where do you see some of the most opportunities for, this next generation coming into the workforce? Is it the trades? Is it college? Is it something else?
It's all of the above, to be quite honest with you. I just think that the landscape of workforce looks so differently for a lot of kids, even in college. And I think the way that it's shaping the workforce and the demand of how they see their value in the workforce, the younger generations, it is forcing us as employers in our generation or older to really be forced to reevaluate the way that we retain, recruit, create programs within our organization to keep people happy, but also thriving businesses. And there's also a lot of deficits where you're kind of doing what you can to meet those needs in today's time, and it is very costly, and there's got to be a better way to support outside of the trades and apprenticeships, small business owners too. Being able to close the gap, like if we were training one of our leads, if we're taking the time to train one of our leads or bring an apprentice in, that's ROI off the company. That's a lot of valuable time. That means I'm not getting to other projects. If I'm training 5 additional team members and one of them or 2 of them happen to be apprentices, you're giving yourself out to so many different directions for the improvement of the workforce and the organization, your contribution to the county as a whole. But there are so many demands in order to meet that financially, not just what you're losing in ROI. It's an investment for sure, but there's got to be better programs to help bridge and soften that blow when the organization is really trying to do the right thing to shape and change the workforce and meet kids where they are. And we're very open to changing with what the new trends are going to be, but they're also very costly. So I think that it is the group and the obligation and the accountability of everybody really involved in the process, both from an employment perspective as an employee and the employer. And there's no way to do it without leveraging help and assistance through the county. Like I said, it takes a village, and you'll hear me continue saying that because success is built with a village.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of great programs that have helped. Even some of the guests I've already interviewed have talked about, the county helping them with capital or whatever it might be.
Yeah, there's a lot of really
started.
great resources. Yeah.
So let's talk about, Kelsey, I'm going to jump back over to you. Where you're at now, obviously you've achieved a level of success, and I always kind of defer to success is different for everybody, right? Whether you're working out of your garage and you're completely happy and content, or if you've created the next, franchise that's around the world. We'll talk about your dreams and aspirations here in a minute for KG Truck and Auto, but knowing what you know now, and Stephanie, you already gave some advice, so I want to hear what Kelsey has to say. But if you could give somebody who's listening some advice, who's just getting started down this path, what would it be?
That's a good one. There's definitely different ways and different views of that and success. I was going to start with that. My advice would be no, it's not going to be easy, because everybody thinks it get rich quick scam. That kind of entrepreneurship or ownership or business owning, generally speaking, it's definitely not going to be easy, and it's a sacrifice. And part of success is knowing where you see yourself successful. Some people think of success as just financial. It is the work-life harmony. You know what I mean? Too much work and not enough. I like to say I work to live. I don't live to work. Mm-hmm. So some people might think I'm lying, or just surprised to hear that, because I sacrifice so much time. We did, actually, when our kids were younger, so we can try to get some of that time when it's more memorable for them, and get in these memorable moments as much as we can during that time. So as the kids get older, we've been spending more and more time with them and doing more things with them. So that, for me, that's the level of success that you have. Family, for me, is big, and being able to afford things that you want to do is also a level of success. But I could be poor in the mountains with my kids and be totally happy. Yeah. I like living off the land and doing stuff like that. So that's my personal thing, is out in the woods and living off the land and doing those kind of things. But really you gotta, and it can change. That's why I try not to goal too much, because it's an idea to me. Because goals can change year to year, month to month, depending on how big your goals and how small they are. So for me, first is have a goal. You know what I mean? You have short-term and long-term goals. And the long ones might change a little bit as you grow and figure out things. So my advice would be to have a goal. Surround yourself with the right people. And that can mean many different things. Depends on your personality. Stuff that you read and talk about is surround yourself with better people than you. I have a best friend of mine. I won't say his name, but he knows who he is. I couldn't have done anything without him. You know what I mean? Without her. So I already have a little circle I'm talking about right now. There's a couple more people in that circle. So I built a circle. I don't have thousands of friends anymore like we used to. So I have a really close group, because my friends, if they call me right now, I'll say, hey, I got to go. This guy's calling me. He's on that circle. So surround yourself with the right people, investing every penny you have into that business. A lot of people like to make money and spend it on something else right away. So for years, anything we made, our lifestyle never changed. So invest in your company, invest in your people, goals, and know it's going to take more than 40 hours a week. I mean, I'm working 80 to 120 hours 25 hours in a day I was working. So there was a handful of times where I go home for an hour, eat, and take a nap and go back to work. Yeah. It's not healthy. It's not what I'm telling people they need to do. But if you're trying to grow a business and you're serious about it, and I wanted to grow faster than long. Like, I didn't want to take 20 or 30 years to get where I was at now. So I sacrificed working two working days in one day to get there faster.
Yeah.
And self-teaching myself. So a lot of those late nights is stuff that I haven't worked on or new stuff. I'm not charging a customer for all of my time in it. I'm self-teaching myself along the way, you know, and making sure I'm doing the right thing and being fair. If I don't know how to charge somebody, I didn't have the resources and stuff I have now, I would call dealerships and other shops and see what they charge and be in that competitive price range, you know? So it's all about where you started at. So it's going to be harder than you think. You know what I mean? Always surround yourself with good people and always ask yourself, how can we do better? How can we do better? I always encourage a constructive criticism and feedback so I can figure out. That's how we built our procedure. It's just by listening to people and changing things as best you can. Because it's never, you can't be one of those people that say, I'm the best and nobody else out there. I thought we had something that nobody else did because I didn't really learn or have somebody tell me what to do with our procedure. So I was a little more controlled on sharing that. Once I started opening up to like national groups and we were on a fleet advisory group, the 10 best shops in the nation and their specific eyes. And I'm surrounding myself with all these business owners, shop owners that have 4, 5, 6 locations and they're in their 60s and 70s. And me and her are the young bucks, you know what I mean? So that a lot of our challenges, we would go right to that group and say, how'd you do this? And I would tell them, listen, I'll never own 2 locations. I don't know what's wrong with that guy.
We don't aspire for more than the location we have.
Yeah, so we have a big location with different divisions in it. And I would just ask those guys cheat sheets. You know what I mean? Instead of reading from a book and taking 10 years for me to read a book, I would ask people that had the real life experiences and try to, as best I could, learn off of their experiences. You know what I mean? And try to, some people would give me advice and I wouldn't take it because I didn't think it was right for me. Or some people would give me advice and it was the best thing that best cheat sheet I ever had. Yeah. You know, so there's different ways to look at that. There definitely is, and different things work for different people. But if people are going to be entrepreneurs, just know it's going to be hard. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot of your time. And just don't spend the money that you make on yourself or stuff that can't make you money. Because man, it's easy to spend money that makes you money. You know what I mean? Because that's what helps you grow. But if you're spending money on stuff that ain't going to make you money in the first couple of years, you might as well just expect it to be either that hard for that much longer or a real struggle.
Yeah.
It's
hard.
Yeah.
This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And I think having the right expectations going into it is important. Also knowing that it's not going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to, it's not failing, it's learning, but making many pivots and just continuing to get up and move forward. And I love how you started with what I would say is really kind of defining your values, which is something that has really been beneficial to me in doing that. Probably in the last 5 years, I started to look at that and spend time. And ironically, it was through a book that I never finished, but I think it was Smart Couples Finish Rich or something like that. And the very first chapter was like, you need to get on the same page with your spouse and define what's important to you. And so I went through the exercise just with myself and it has evolved. But when you talk about, family and money and, all these things, like I have my core values that I've defined, and they really help to make decisions, right? Whenever I'm presented with an opportunity or any sort of thing that's going to lead to a decision, I'm able to kind of reflect on those core values and say, is this in alignment, whether it's for my health or for my family or for, business and wealth. I love that because it's
keep you on course.
Keeps you on course and keeps the bullshit out.
Yeah.
Right?
It makes some of the decision making easier too.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing to overcome is if you're looking to be an entrepreneur is, especially you're doing it young, how to tune out the distractions. And not every opportunity is an opportunity. Sometimes things that could look like a great opportunity at the time are really just distractions for that time. And so I think learning place and time for things is really big as you're on that journey, because not everything that glitters is gold, and not everything. There was opportunities I definitely turned down last year and the year before that to get involved exactly in a lot of what I would like that I'm doing now. Had I said yes, it would have said no to a lot of things. And I think I learned that very early on in my career, that the biggest no also leads to the best yes. And rejection is one of the most powerful things that can shape you to learn and understand how to give and when to say a better yes, and what you're saying yes to, and what commitment that requires from you, and how to tune out the distractions, because not all opportunities you should say yes to, even though it looks like it and you in your mind are justifying it. Sometimes they are distractions, and that's where that village comes in to help you see that mirror.
Yeah, I feel like particularly as you grow, you become a bigger target.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot more people are focused on you, and maybe their intentions are good, maybe they're not, maybe they just want a piece of what you've built. But yeah, I think learning to say no is an important thing. So what does the future look like for KG and Auto? I'm going to go to Stephanie on this one. Kelsey, you can jump in.
Our goal is forevermore will be to continue to empower and grow the team that we have. Leadership for us has been something that in the last 2 years we have really learned not only about ourselves, but the way that we have implemented and poured into our team, both financially and morally, ethically, like just from every aspect of the organization. It is definitely showing its dividends. So for us, that is the continuation to empower our team to get to a point where there is continued organizational competency within our team for them to be self-sufficient, and continue training that impacts the community. There's so many different facets of our division. And so what I love about what we have built is that we've taken both from a private sector and a corporate sector, all the things that we did not have a great experience in. And one of the things that we can say that was not a great experience in growing through kind of our careers was the career opportunity and the development, right? We experienced it in some, but not all. And we experienced terrible leadership in some, and some really great leadership of things that influenced how I lead today and what I do with my team. So for us, I would say, at least my perspective on it, is to continue growing those departments in the organization from that standpoint, but to continue offering and developing career opportunities, because we've made it a point to make our facility a career-based facility, so that even though you're someone like myself, if you're turning wrenches or not turning wrenches, that being a technician is not the only way to enter the industry. And it doesn't mean that if you come in as a technician, it's not the only way to end up. There's so many other management positions, from marketing, from sales to on-site division to logistics, GMs. There's so many different facets of our company that evolves into real careers. That for us is continue to develop that and perfect that, and to empower our leadership team so that we can entrust them with the care of others. And that's what it continues to boil down to. So by default, all of that will create growth within the organization. But more than anything, when I think about people that have interviewed with us and said, I've given 20 years of service or 40 years of service to this employer, and through COVID, they were like, that's it, bye, nothing. They had nothing to show for it. So from an organizational standpoint, it is a really big goal for us to be able to build the career facility that we're looking to build, where people give us 40, 50 years of service and have something to show for it, have ownership in some type of way. So that is a big part of the discussion of the seeds that we've been planning for the last 2 years in succession planning in all these different areas. But it really is truly focused on our people. That's successful.
I believe
to
in
us.
our core team right now. We got a really good core team, and trying to build something for forever for them, whether it's pension planning or extra retirement, or they call it ESOP. There's different opportunities and things that we can do once we get there. It's a goal, but I don't know what that looks like yet. But having the internal growth, but then just growing what we have now to its max capacity. And once we get a good core, the max capacity, and where you have the decision to, all right, let's start another location, which really isn't in our ambitions on that, then it would be figuring out how to empower the leaders to help run it, but then also for me and her to look at the community at that point and get more and more involved in the community. We have an accredited apprentice. This is one of those tongue twisters. Accredited apprenticeship program. So it's hard. I'm realizing it's hard to find experienced people. For us, that's a right fit. It's not that they're a good or bad technician or service writer or different things. It's the right fit for our company. So we've had really good experiences with people that just didn't know anything about this industry and teaching them, but them being
I'm a product of it.
Being a great leader, but also having somebody that's real receptive of that information and knowing how to use it. So that's where a lot of our leadership skills that we're trying to hone in to do better at that. So that's what we see the end goal of KG is: self-efficient, good, happy core of people, and growing it till its max capacity. And then with the accredited training facility that we have, is to be able to eventually farm out in this area. Once we can't handle any more at our facility, then farm them out.
Yeah.
And that helps give Anne Arundel County a better core and contributes to that as well, and this industry, because it's just like a lot of the blue collar trades. It's why labor is getting to be so much, because nobody wants to do it. Nobody really wants to work hard, as in physically. I feel like as much. There's a lot less of that, and I think society's been kind of contributing to that too. So we always call ourselves the in-between generation, from the old school to the new school. Mm-hmm. And I think we're a good transition for some of that we have to navigate through. But really just trying to bring more of that and reel it back into the blue collar world. That's why we're involved on some of the boards at a lot of the trade schools and Anne Arundel County Community College and different things like that. Awesome. So we're setting that up now to really dive really deep into that, hopefully down the road.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a great answer.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody wants to be a part of what you're building or come support you, how can they get in touch? Where can they go?
In today's day and age, anyway, the best thing is look at our facility though. Yeah. We have a very nice facility that my best friend mentor helped build and guide me through. He said, if you don't buy it, Kelsey, I will. All right, I'll buy it. I don't want him to show me up on that. So come see the facility and see what we've built. It's a very nice state of the art. I try to build a comfortable place for people to work at, and then the culture. But it's just text, email, Google, all of those things. But the best thing is to come see us, see us in action, take a tour. If you're a client and you want to come see the place, come look at it and see how we do things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the address again? I think you said it earlier, but
155 8th Avenue Northwest, Glen Burnie, Maryland.
Awesome. And
it's a full service auto and truck equipment repair facility. When I say that, we do any car on the road, and tractor trailers, equipment, skid steers, backhoes, pavers. The only thing we don't have is a paint booth. So if they say you have to go to the dealer for something, 99% of the time we can do it. And we train for that. We subscribe for subscriptions for all the dealership information, the equipment. So if just come and see the facility and see how we run things, and it'll show itself. But always pick up 443-848-1175. Call me.
That is his real cell phone.
It's out in the world now.
Yeah, come on.
Just don't give out our home address, please.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you being here and for everything you're doing.
Thanks for having us. I like seeing this full circle. I think
Yeah,
this is
right?
awesome.
Come back around.
Absolutely.
But yeah, back in the day, that was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. Let's keep this stuff off the air.
That's good stuff.
Thanks
Good
for
stuff,
having
guys.
us.
Yep, my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Real Pasadena Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Real Pasadena is your local online source where we cover the real news and highlight the real people impacting our community. Be sure to check us out at realpasadenamd.com, where you'll also find all the show notes and additional episodes of the podcast. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, be well, my friends.